Hi, this is Katy Trohear and I'm Katherine Musgrove, and we are here at the lovely gardens in Harlow Carr, and Katy is going to be planting a monkey puzzle tree, Araucaria. Now we have got really heavy clay soil here, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we do to improve that. As you can see, if I just get down here, you could make pots with this soil. It does help us in some respects because it hangs on to its moisture and it has a lot of nutrients in. But we do want to add organic matter to open that structure and just help it grow away. We have to quarantine our trees now because of plant health regulations, so we put them into these air pots. If you could just get that out, Katy. Yeah. And the air pots are basically just a structure like this with holes in, and this encourages the light in, which helps the roots grow out, and we get this lovely nice fibrous roots. You can just see how many roots that's developed. So that's going to help it in its future life here, because trees are a long-term investment and we really want to give them the best start we can. So that's why we use air pots. If you haven't got air pots, it doesn't matter. If you've got a very rooty tree, you just want to give that a good teasing out so that you don't have them growing round and round and round in their pot because they don't like the compost or the soil they're in. Because you can imagine if a tree's been in a pot for a while, it then has this tendency to want to grow round and round. We want it to grow out and anchor itself into the ground. So if you could just tip that on its side, Katy, so we can have a look underneath. And just remove the base. So again, the base is there like that for easy watering. Katy's pre-prepared this hole, but what we need to do is make sure we've got the correct size for the tree. We've dug it square because again, we want to make sure the roots are growing out into the soil and not going to contain themselves in their circle. If the height is wrong, what Katy's doing now is she's just checking that height to see where we've got to. We might have to put some soil back into there.
Just a little bit, I think.
Because what we do, generally when you have clay soil, you would want to mound plant slightly so that you aren't going to make a sump for the water to collect in. Okay, so Katy's mixing our compost with the existing soil, and we're doing that because we want to really open up the structure of the clay. Clay is a very, very fine particulate matter, and it really just wants to cling to itself, and what we want to do is break that up so that we will get this nice allowing the water in to soak through but not cling to the roots. We don't want to drown it, and clay will have that tendency for the water not to be able to permeate through. Have a try of that, Katy. Just think that little bit more in there. So can you see what she's doing here? She's just making sure that that's level. Now that is level, but we want it, as I said, slightly higher. That's also looking like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's really difficult planting trees on a slope. So we're using this compost, which is also our own, and that as a different mix. It just helps to make the soil quite friable, which just means it's workable and easy to use. And again, it's just about breaking up that clay. That looks much better, Katy, now. That's great. Just check that. Yeah. Do you want to twiddle it round a bit? I think that's about right too. It's quite useful to stand back and check that within the landscape it's sitting how you want it to. And sometimes when they've been containerised for a while, they do have this tendency to grow slightly one way or slightly the other, and you want to just make sure that you've got its best side. Everyone has a best side. Yep. So that looks fine. Yep. So we just need to mix this one and put them in. We didn't need to tease out those roots because, as I said earlier, the air pot has given us nice friable roots Nothing's needing to be teased out and encouraged to grow. So this should grow nicely away into the ground. When we've got our tree planted, if it's in a very exposed area, you need to be able to plant with a stake, possibly. And this is to protect the tree from the prevailing winds. And by prevailing winds, I mean the way the wind blows in the most frequently. So that the wind will buffet the stake before it buffets the tree, because we don't want those roots to be rocking before they've established. So we're not going to stake this tree because it's sheltered, it's quite protected by the hedge and by the woodland itself. The whole garden is on a slight angle like this, so in this central core the trees are quite protected. We have to have quite extensive shelter belts all around the edge of the garden to protect the rest of the garden, and some of those trees are sacrificial because they are the ones that's getting the prevailing winds. So Katy's just healing that in now, so we've got a good contact with the soil and the roots. And then can you see how there's a slight mound there? And you're just going to top dress it with that mulch. We're just top dressing it there. So you can top dress with a number of things, but for trees, just to make it look more natural, we just use a fine bark mulch. Just helps to keep the moisture locked in and gives it a nice finish, basically. I mean, for different applications, you can do different mulches. You know, sometimes people would use slate or an ornamental spruce bark or something like that. One of the really important things when you're planting a tree, this part's called the flare. And if you cover that up, then you will start a rotting process because the tree's used to being grown at that level. So it's basically where the tree's been put in its container. You want to keep that exposed and not mulch around it because that will encourage rotting. So there we are. Happy tree, hopefully.